Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the One of Us podcast. We're so excited to have you guys in here, sitting on the couch with us and being one of us. Today, I'm just excited to ask you guys some questions about staying present, avoiding distraction, and staying focused. Because I feel like in today's day and age, there's just a lot going on, a lot of distraction. And as people, as young adults, and as Christians, I just think it's so important to really, stay present and try to avoid those things that are going to distract us from our calling and purpose. So I had a question for you guys. Do you feel like you spend most of your time being future focused? Are you past focused? Or do you guys feel like you actually do live in the present?
It depends on what I'm doing. So if I'm working, I'm definitely more future focused just because marketing, you gotta prepare, plan, and execute. I think when I do trips, I was in Vegas and the Monterey. Those those times I'm very focused and like kind of being present. I don't really think about anything. I try not to stress because I just want to live in the moment. So it just really depends on what I'm doing and what's going on in my life.
Depending on what area of life, I try and do that, but I would probably say I lean more towards present than I do focusing on the past or the future. I have goals of like what I want for the future and ways to achieve them, but I also know I'm that one of those people that if I'm always focused on tomorrow, I kind of lose sight of today and with the people that I have around me. So I tend to kind of just relax and focus on today.
I think for me, honestly, I try to stay in the present just because of Matthew 6:34, don't be anxious about tomorrow. I think in time management, I try my best not to just lay in the past so much. There's actually one of my favorite Bible verses. It's Ecclesiastes 7:10, and I'll actually read it. It says, "Say not, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this." And when I read that, usually is kind of saying, hey, when you think about your past, think about the moments where God pulled through to kind of engage you in the season that you're in right now. God is just sanctifying you day by day, making you more in his image. So you're being better as a person day by day.
To echo kind of what you guys have said, I dabble in all three, obviously, and I think all three mindsets are beneficial for different things. Like, it is important to think about the past in the sense of like learning from the past, learning from things that have happened so that you can prepare your way in the present and in the future. I am a little bit nostalgic as a person. I love looking back. And I think we all kind of do, looking back and seeing what God has done or the adventures that we've had or like the good, sweet moments that we've had. And I think that actually propels us in the present and in the future as well. But sometimes I do have to watch myself. For example, I was talking to my coworker the other day and I was like, yeah, we're already done with 6 months out of the year. And she goes, not yet. I mean, she's technically right. June hasn't ended already. But in my head, I'm like already in July, like in my brain. Like I'm preparing for July. I'm thinking about July or sometimes at the beginning of the week. I think it's the end of the week because I'm already like days ahead in my brain. So I do have to like watch myself and be like, okay, I'm going to be present. I'm going to be in today. And especially in special moments like what you were saying, Tati and Vic, where we're all together gathered or I'm with my family or with you guys or in a special moment or special occasion, I have to remind myself, take it all in, be present, observe, just experience, feel, do all the things. So I would agree with you guys in that sense.
Do you find yourself, because I think I struggle with this, wanting to not look ahead or be more present, but then you just kind of struggle with it?
Yeah, honestly, I feel that way all the time. When I was thinking about this particular topic, when I was praying about it the last 2 days, I kind of thought of it as time management for some reason. Everything in life is all about a priority, right? What ranks higher in your priority list than others? And I think as Christians, we should want to give our first fruits to the Lord, right? Kind of dedicate majority of our day just being with the Lord and all that we do to glorify him.
I want to say something kind of based off of what Crystal was saying and what you just said, Juan. Crystal, you were talking earlier about reminiscing of how the things in the past can kind of propel you to the future. And then Juan, you were talking about, your first fruits of, starting off, the day with intentionality and giving it to the Lord. 2 nights ago, I actually went for a drive and I drove past my old high school, my old middle school. I drove past the apartments that we lived in for like 7 years. And as I was driving by, I got filled with so much joy because I thought back to where I was and where I was without Christ. And in that moment, I don't know, I don't know if anyone like has this feeling, and please put it in the comments if you guys have felt this, where it's like there's such a huge like amount of joy that kind of just like swells up inside of you, and you kind of look crazy because you're just smiling and so happy. And in that moment, I was just so filled with joy because I was like, look at where the Lord has taken me. Look at how far I've come from where I was to where I am now. And there were so many moments where I thought I wouldn't be able to get where I was now.
That's so special. What you said actually reminds me of a verse. It's Psalm 118:24. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Of just like truly having joy and truly just being so glad for the day that we're in and thankful for what the Lord has done. And I think that can also be looking at the past, what you're saying, because if we don't reflect on what God has done, we can lose sight of what he's doing and what he's capable of doing in the present and in the future. So I think that's really special, Vic, that you're able to kind of take a trip down memory lane.
We're talking a lot about distractions. Why don't you guys share like what are some distractions that you might have? What can distractions look like? What type of forms can they come in? Is it the same? Is it different? How would you guys define it?
I think we can all collectively agree. I know that some of you guys have like the timer thing on your phone, but for me, definitely social media, but also work, which sucks because that's like, you can't not work. Yeah, those are kind of my top two. I think a lot of people probably definitely struggle with the social media one. Maybe mine is Juan because he doesn't have any.
Truth.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we live in a world that is meant to distract us, and it's just masked as entertainment. It could look in various forms. I would say for me specifically, I think my biggest distractions are, time on my phone, time in front of a screen, whether that's the TV screen, a laptop screen, my phone screen, and as a way to like veg out. And I mask it as a way of to decompress, but I don't think it's probably as beneficial for me as other ways. So I've been replacing that now with trying to read, trying to like plan things on my notepad, trying to journal, various things like that. But I do think that distractions can come in so many different forms for people. And I think good things can be distractions as well. Like filling up your plate with like 100 different things throughout the week, depending on what those things are, can serve sometimes as a distraction for maybe the path that God is trying to guide you toward. So I think it could be obvious things like what we've mentioned, but also they can be a little bit disguised. And it could just be good things, but doing too much of anything sometimes can be a distracting.
When it comes to distractions, like today, just the topic, what I was kind of thinking of was Ephesians 5:15 through 17. And it says, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what is the will of the Lord." With that verse, I feel like every day as a Christian, I wake up and I tell myself, how am I going to be a better husband? How am I gonna, spread the word of God? How am I gonna be a good witness to my coworkers, to my family, and my friends? With all that being said, every Crystal does this too with me, but every Sunday we do like this team meeting where we kind of manage our time throughout the week. And not that we hold our days super tight fisted, we always hold our days with our palms wide open, because ultimately the Lord guides our steps. When I think of distractions, I think of what outside forces kind of takes our eyes away from the sanctification process, right? Away from us building towards our better selves, or just being productive in the Lord. And I think for me, I guess in this season, there's multiple seasons where maybe one season, the way that I would consume media was a little questionable. But I guess in this season now, what I feel is really distracting is how I try to decompress, right? So for me, sometimes after a really long day, when I feel like I need to recharge, sometimes I guess as a confession of sin, my first thought isn't running to, praise or running to read the Bible. Things that are decompressing that are kind of mindless, like watching maybe videos that have no real purpose, like on YouTube, just scrolling endlessly, or playing a video game that has no real structure. So I think it's for me in this season in for distractions has been really just trying to understand how do I really decompress well with the Lord.
I also think distractions, maybe that word isn't directly used in the Bible, but it's definitely a theme in the Bible. Like you hear throughout the Old and New Testament, be watchful, stay awake, be sober minded, things like that to draw us to really be present, I think, ultimately. And when you are being present and awake and aware and undistracted, you can hear so much better the voice of God in your life and the direction that He has for you. So that's ultimately, I think, the point. And I think of Proverbs 4:25 through 27. Let your eyes look directly forward and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. And obviously there's so much context to this and there's a lot of depth to it, but a piece of it is definitely, as human beings, we can be so easily swerved from left to right, whether that's in our faith, in our relationships, in our calling, in our direction, in so many different areas in life. And so really just staying the course and walking that narrow path and not straying, I guess, from that purpose that we all have.
There is a story in the Bible. It's Martha and Mary, and it actually talks about distractions. So I'll read it. So it's in Luke 10:38 through 42. And it goes, "Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me.' But the Lord answered her, 'Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her.'" When I first read that, as I was coming into faith, sometimes I would look and I'd be like, hey, Mary should probably go help her sister. She's serving Jesus, 12 disciples, all that good stuff, probably making them food and everything. But even though she was doing a good work, she was still distracted by what the greater purpose in life was, which was to listen to his teaching and to be present even with him in that moment. And I know we've been talking about past and future. I think it's great to have, goals for the future and what you want, but it's great to be present when God can speak to you today. And I think we can get so distracted on, even though they're good things, we can get distracted easily trying to fulfill and make him proud and, do all these things for, him to see us, but give time for Jesus to actually speak and for us to listen. I think sometimes we also make ourselves little busybodies, and we need to learn to just slow down, sit at the feet of Jesus, and listen to what he has to say.
I think being intentional in that time with God is really important, because I know that I have in the past struggled with just reading my Bible to read it, just to make sure I just spend that time with him. So I want to emphasize it's important to be intentional, be present, and take your time and not rushing it. It will make an impact in your life if you're just kind of like zooming through it.
Yeah, for me, honestly, the Bible is so convicting. It's so powerful. I think especially for those, here in the States, how our culture is so intertwined with living in the fast lane. I think sometimes we think that if we're not doing like 2, 3, 4, 5 multitasking things, that somehow the day isn't productive. But I think some of the most productive days that I've ever had was just being present wherever the Lord placed me, being present as a husband, being present as a son or a friend, just so that the Lord can use me and use others in my position to speak to me.
Yeah. And the passage that you read, Vic, really highlights this idea that good things can still be a distraction, right? Because what Martha was doing wasn't bad. It wasn't sinful. It wasn't wrong. It was kind and hospitable. But the time to spend at the feet of Jesus is way better and way more rewarding for our souls, which is what Mary was doing. I think just for the listeners or viewers out there to think in your life, like maybe what are good things that I'm doing that are actually serving as a distraction and not drawing me near to God, but actually drawing me farther away. That could be because you're doing these things out of your own strength or your own ability or your own desire, right? Or things that look good on paper or look good to others, but to really take a self-reflection, a moment of to just reflect in your own life, like maybe what are these things that are doing that are not coming from a genuine place or a cheerful heart, or really to just honor and glorify God with everything that I am. And so I think that would be interesting for all of us to kind of reflect on. I did want to ask if you guys had any examples in your life when you felt like you have been distracted, and maybe ways that are uncommon or not as obvious, and what you did to kind of go down in a better direction, I guess, or drawing closer to God in those times.
I can say I can get distracted pretty easily. Not that I try to, but, Tati said it sometimes with work, and then after work, going and helping out with family, or if it's not helping out with friends, it's or with family. Yeah, it's going and helping out with friends or hanging out. And I have this habit where sometimes I'm just like, yeah. And then I get to the end of the day and I have, maybe 20, 30 minutes, before I'm supposed to go to bed. And I could probably use that time to read my Bible, but I'm like, kind of done for the day. And so I kind of veg out by using my phone as a distraction. Rather, it would have been such a beautiful way to end the night. And so I know at nighttime, not really my best time, but mornings are a little bit better. So, even for me, I will tend to get up just a little bit earlier in the morning. And when I'm doing my makeup or getting ready, I'll put on worship music and I'll pray to God and I'll thank him for this day. And because I know sometimes at night, I'll talk to him like, hey God, this is what's going on. But I want to start each morning with joy. I want to wake up with a heart of gratefulness. And two, I've said it, before, I'll get to work a little bit early and I will make that time where there's no distractions. I'm not at home. I can't put on the TV. I can't use my dog Esther as an excuse. I don't have to worry about if my family comes down. I love talking to him, but so I'll go to work early. I'll sit in the parking lot. I'll sit with my Bible. I'll put my phone on Do Not Disturb. That is the biggest one, by the way. Putting your phone on Do Not Disturb is the biggest game changer ever, because otherwise if you don't, you get little notifications that keep popping up, and as you're reading the Bible you keep looking to the side, like, every few seconds, like, oh, someone likes my post or someone's texting me, better respond back. No, put that thing on Do Not Disturb.
I know it may sound like we're vilifying like devices and stuff, and that's not true at all. Again, they're tools, good things for us, but overuse obviously can be an issue, right? But obviously, like what you guys are listening or watching to a podcast, finding those things that are going to feed you, because social media, I think, and just the world of devices has served to really be able to expand people's reach, to share the gospel, to encourage one another, to sharpen one another. So I think it really does have a lot of its benefits. But just in general, I think what we're trying to get at is too much of anything, right, can serve as a distraction.
Honestly, I really like what everyone is saying. I think what's really been moving me has been, just a story that Vic shared about Martha and Mary. I just remember hearing this in a sermon once. It's like, if the devil isn't trying to get in front of you and stop you from the Lord, he's going to get behind you and push you further away from the Lord. And I think in everything that we do, it's really understanding why are we doing it. As Christians, we kind of tout and say the whole purpose of being, the whole purpose of pursuing faith is to have a deep relationship with Christ. But I feel like sometimes we do things in the absence of having a relationship with Christ. Like, I know so many Christians who they serve almost every single day. They try to read their Bible and they still say that they feel like they have no real relationship with the Lord. And I feel like the most common denominator is, when I ask them, like, well, when you serve, do you feel like you have any relationship with the Lord? Do you feel close to him? Do you feel like he's leading you, that you're prioritizing meeting him? And most of the time, I hear my brothers and sisters who are doing those aren't things that they're prioritizing. It's kind of like that Natalie Grant song. Like, I'm not trying to be corny or cheesy, but when she says like, it's not about the healing, it's about the healer. I just feel like in our kind of cultural surroundings, sometimes we try to say, okay, I'm a Christian, so I have to read and I have to go to church and I have to serve and I have to do all these things because I know it's good for me and because somehow God is going to meet me through doing all these things. But it's not really a chores list. It's not like doing all these works to somehow have a relationship with the Lord. It's simply showing up as you are, truly submitting to the Lord's will. And just telling yourself, like, hey, as I'm doing this, is it bringing me closer to the Lord? Am I actually seeing Him move, through prayer and through the work of other people? And if it's not, it's one of those moments where you kind of have to sit down and assess if whatever you're doing, whatever media you're consuming, whatever you feel like is kind of taking a large chunk of your time, if it's really pushing you towards Christ. And if it's not, maybe you need to seek some counsel with some people and see if, whatever that you're doing is actually good or not.
Yeah, that's good. I want to go back to something you said earlier about that quote, right? I've heard it said, if the devil can't destroy you, he'll distract you. So going off of what you were saying, the devil is really like a roaring lion seeking out who to devour, right? And I think the importance of being sober-minded, right, and present with the Lord and with others is that the word of God is a two-edged sword, right? It's our best weapon that we have against those schemes. But if we're so distracted, we won't be able to fight those battles. We won't be able to put on the armor of Christ. We won't be able to take a hold of those fruits of the Spirit in our life. And that's dangerous for us and not God's best for us.
How do you guys think our role is in a fellowship, right? What's our roles when either A, we see one of our brothers and sisters in Christ being super consumed in whatever they're doing, whether that's, distracted, like we're saying, like maybe they're just a workaholic or they're, I don't know, taking so much time off and consuming this type of media, whatever it may be, that they're doing something in an excess that you see them do steps further from God, right? Like they're not going to church, they're not maybe reading, they're not really engaging in you in a Christ-like way anymore. What do you think is our role in a fellowship when we see a brother and sister kind of going down that path? And to the flip side, how can you guys use fellowship to not be distracted?
I think the primary thing you should focus on is definitely checking in on that person and making sure that they're okay. Because sometimes life does get in the way and there are distractions and maybe there's things going on that you're not aware of. So doing that checkup and making sure that they're okay first, and then offer guidance and offer maybe opportunities to help them, like, hey, let's do a Bible study, or hey, let's pray together. Just find ways to kind of get them back on the, on track. I think it's easy sometimes to assume, and you just want to make sure that they're emotionally well, physically well, and then, spiritually well, of course. But I think that for me, that would be my first thing, doing checkups. Sometimes there's things that are deeper.
Yeah, like bearing each other's burdens.
Yeah. Because a question that I have, and I think I'm just self-reflecting right now, is, are they a workaholic because they want to be a workaholic, or are they workaholic because work is very demanding? Because I think there's a difference of being a workaholic for the wrong reasons, and then you just unfortunately get stuck in those situations. And what are they doing to further prevent those things from happening as well?
I guess I can speak a little bit on that because I see where you're going with the flip side of things. I think regardless, this could be work or anything other, you have to see, is this stealing my joy? Is this robbing me of my peace? And is this serving me? Or am I becoming a slave to this thing when I'm supposed to be a slave to Christ only? And so I think that's where that workaholic piece, regardless of the motivation or why it occurs, can be harmful. And obviously life occurs, right? Some people, really have to grind it out, but really putting that at the foot of the cross and saying, like, what can I do to regain my peace, regain my joy, regain my focus on what's important and what's ahead of me, right? That arrow, which is like to just aim towards Christ. I think that's the point. That's the piece of it. And I guess going off of that, I was thinking of serving two masters. I was thinking of the Bible verse Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despite the other. You cannot serve both God and money in this case. And I think that could be reflective of your question of work too. But in general, I think the core of this is we can't serve multiple masters. Is your work your master? Is your whatever it is, are your friends your master? Is your what you're engaging in media wise your master? Like just kind of taking a personal tally of what things are really guiding my life and that aren't God and that aren't God focused. And I think using that piece, because I think it's so easy to do what you're saying, Tati, to see this and like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. This is what I'm in. This is the stage that I'm in. But there is such a beauty in like slowing down a little bit so that you can see things a little bit more clearly.
Kind of to Crystal's point, that's why I like Ephesians 5:15, is because it really talks about, look how the way that you walk, right? Just like how Crystal was saying, you when you're living life, you always come into these choices where you're placed in a decision, right? To choose one path or another. And I think this is why the Bible describes the Christian life like enlisting in a war, is because there's so many decisions in the day to day where it's literally a battle. And sometimes we're not really looking at the way that we're walking. There's times where I feel during the day, I mean, I can only speak for myself, right? Where, it's like late in the day, I haven't read my Bible, I haven't, prayed, I haven't really spent time with the Lord or even thought about God to begin with. Right? I'm kind of just like moving through the day. Circumstances in life keep filling up my plate. And I keep saying yes, yes. Kind of like what Vic was saying, sometimes you become a little bit of like a yes man. Yes, like you it's hard to say no for the right reasons. But I feel like you have to really watch your decisions day by day so that you don't get carried away in those distractions, right? You have to really hold every thought captive and tell yourself, hey, all these decisions that I'm making, am I making room for the Lord? Am I giving him the first fruits? And I think that's what's really important about this topic, is to kind of encourage anyone who's listening truly to just think about the media you consume, your free time, just to tell yourself, hey, is what I'm doing leading me down a path or consuming me down a way that's not really pointing towards Jesus?
I think a really good way to test the type of media that you consume, obviously, like watching TV is a little different, but I know a lot about social media. Just go on the For You page, and the types of content that pop up there are what the algorithm knows that you're going to most likely engage or like. I know for me, like I definitely challenge myself, even though I consume a lot of media, I admit it. We mentioned it before, but I try my best to look up, and make sure I'm engaging with all of the Christian content. Because if I'm going to be mindlessly scrolling through my feed or my For You page, I'd rather have it be filled with the Lord, like, worship music or sermons. You can still be spiritually fed with those things. Again, don't let it consume you, but have that be kind of like an avenue to just get more of like God and Jesus. And it might be more motivational too. I know sometimes I'll be scrolling and I'm like, I could read a chapter right now. Let me go do that real quick. And it's just, just kind of reminding me and just keeping God in the daily routines. Gotta make a way to make it happen.
Yeah, that's really powerful, Tati. I think honestly, that's something that I really got from you in the beginning, Tati, because I'll admit it, when we first downloaded TikTok, when it was like the craze, I just remember I would look at Tati's For You page and there'd be filled with like Christian memes and like really cool worship songs. And then my For You page was like the dumbest humor you can think of. And I remember that day, I was like, wow, like I really need to check myself before I wreck myself right now. That's something that I really enjoy about our fellowship, is that I see you guys really chasing after the Lord's heart. And it encourages me to think about, what I'm doing. I always have viewed my friendships with the body, the body of the church as like, those aren't distractions because they're encouragements. And my fellow believers, they always encourage me in many different areas. There's some brothers and sisters in Christ that I have who they hit the gym at like 4 a.m. and I'm just like, wow, I'm like trying to go to the gym at 6, and I thought that was like miraculous. But just hearing how they are dedicated in certain ways to glorify the Lord just really shakes me up and kind of puts my blinders on and my focus back onto the Lord.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on this piece, Juan, of, the saying imitation is the best form of flattery, or even like Paul says it in the Bible, like be imitators of me. It's both that and that accountability of what you're saying is being in a community or a group of believers is so key to this piece, because we can look at one another and be encouraged by the other person, like, wow, this person's doing this, or this person is like really being faithful in this area or remaining undistracted in this area. And we can be encouraged by those things, like what you were saying, when you see people, Juan, getting up early, rising before the sun, and, trying to take care of their temple. And so there's that. And then I also see that accountability piece, which is what you were saying on if you see a friend that maybe is getting too distracted or too involved in something that maybe you don't see fruit in. And Tati mentioned, just checking in. I think also just asking those questions, because I know, for us, some of us, we keep going back to the social media piece, but some of us have timers on each other's phone where we are the ones that have the passwords, for the certain time limit that there is. Or, I know I've had conversations with a few people where I'm like, hey, like, I see that you're engaged in this and this and this activity. Like, is this activity, bringing you joy? Like what I was saying, is this activity serving you? I feel that you're kind of drained from this. Like, do you see that as well? And so I think it's so important to, have that accountability with one another, because we all see each other's blind spots. And it's so important. Like, if I'm engaged in something, maybe I'm breaking my witness, or maybe it's not showing that, I'm filled by this, or I'm overflowing with God's love and grace into what I'm doing or the people around me, then it's important that someone says, hey, like, have you thought about this? So I think that's so important. And I encourage people out there to, seek that accountability group, and also seek just that fellowship, which is what you were saying, Juan, of people that you can be encouraged by and imitate one another as you're imitating Christ ultimately.
Yeah, I want to speak on something I experienced today. I think for sure, and that's what I was kind of referencing earlier, it's important when you do check up on people, don't make assumptions and don't label them to be something. Maybe ask them a lot of questions to understand. I did get called a workaholic today, and I was like, I wish I could stop. I just have this problem where I respect my authority a lot. So it's a little different for me. But yeah, I think maybe don't, if you are keeping someone accountable, just ask a lot of questions. But also, if this person is aware of like the things that are distracting them and they're working on, actively, doing something else or improving, I think we should be celebrating the wins. For example, I volunteer at church and I edit the videos for the social media team. And I did my first trial, and my leader was like super grateful and really encouraging me. And I felt super impacted by that, because I think I needed it. And it's just like cool to see that God used my skills that I use in my everyday life just to like edify me and use it for his purpose. Yeah, I think it's important to just kind of have the balance and make sure that people are being accountable, but also a reminder, can't force people to do anything. That's definitely a big lesson I've learned this year.
Yeah, Tati, honestly, I really love what you're saying here. It's kind of like what Paul was saying, accountability and reproach with love above all things. If we don't have love, what do we have at the end of the day? So I really like kind of your advice here, Tati, because I think a lot of times you shouldn't first be assuming anything about anyone. And asking questions kind of helps the other person as well kind of think about their situation, them trying to also process what they've been doing. But I think asking questions gives you, the person who's trying to check up on your friend, a greater context to what's happening and how you can bear their burdens. But yeah, honestly, that was really well said, Tati. But I will say this, like with everything being said, I just have to say one banger. It's probably one of my most favorite worship songs of all time. Are you guys ready? It goes like this. Be careful, little eyes, what you see, for the Father up above is looking down in love.
Bars.
That's a good one, Juan.
Just remember that.
Gotta give that on the radio.
For those trues out there who knows what worship song I'm singing, just know that nursery rhyme hits harder every year that goes by. Yeah, so honestly, guys, I guess just word of encouragement, just set your eyes on things above. Friendly reminder, hey, check up or check in on yourself on what you're spending your time in, and is it really pointing you to Christ? And for those who have friends, as Tati said, check up on them, check in and see how you can bear their burdens. If you have any other further questions or comments, please send them down below, and just DM us directly if you have any more interesting takes on this topic. But speaking of takes, Tati is going to take it away from us, and we're going to do a hot take like we always do when we end these podcasts.
Yes. Also, want to give a little shout out real quick. We just had started our own Discord server. So if you want to join, it'll be in the little bio thingy. Okay. First one. QR code menus are better than physical ones.
No.
False.
Why are you guys hating on the QR code?
Because I got to get my phone out, then I got to scan it, then I got to scroll, then just flipping pages.
I have AT&T.
It's also hard because you have to like scroll and there's like different tabs rather than on an actual menu. You can see
and
everything.
if you click on something and then go back, it takes you all the way back to the original page. Just give me the physical copy.
Okay, this is my compromise. Why don't we have one? Why don't we have one laminated menu, right? For each table. It's just my thing is, look, these are the three problems I run into. One, my phone is always inconveniently low percentage. So when I open up this QR menu, it literally drains 20% of my battery instantly. Two, when you open the QR code menu, there's no pictures.
Sometimes.
Like, I don't know what I'm eating. I can't read
Sometimes
stuff.
there's no pictures. I've seen ones with photos.
Like, rarely. And then the last thing, honestly, okay, this is my last thing with QR menus. The most frustrating thing is that 80% of the time, the QR doesn't even work. So why do we have QR menus?
Okay, I have a challenge for you, Juan. So you said one menu per table. What if we're doing our iconic 14 plus people in one table though?
Then I guess we're just gonna have to get, maybe it should be like a ratio, like one menu per 6 people.
Sharing is caring.
It's gonna take forever. I mean, yeah, sharing is caring.
Listen,
but...
Tati. Listen to my soapbox right now. We need to take time. We need to stop rushing and being on the grind culture. If it takes you 10, 15 more minutes to go around the table and read the menu.
No, because I'm hungry.
What if
Vic, you better wait.
I just want to eat.
No, time out.
What is it?
I just thought about something even better. Are you guys ready? This is my thoughts. What if instead of QR codes, right? You just give, I know some restaurants already do this, but why don't you give every table like this movable, portable iPad, right? Where like you can just, it's like a QR code thing, but it's already pulled up. It's like a electronic menu.
Or hear me out. Everywhere you go is like in and out, and they have 5 things on the menu, so nobody needs a menu because you already know what's on it.
I believe in freedom, so if people want to have 200,000 things on their menu, then I'm all for it. But I'll probably not scan your QR code.
So would you rather have a menu with no name and just photos?
They need pictures. I'm sorry. If you ever go eat sushi and there's not a picture on your menu, we're standing up and going, look, you know how people have different learning styles? My learning style isn't reading and absorbing. It's kind of just being more practical. So if I see a picture, I'm like, yes.
Problem solving. Get the old photo books, just print out the photos of the meals, and then whenever you want to change the menu, just add a new one.
Dude, 10 out of 10. Actually, we should make a restaurant like that right now.
I want sushi now.
Okay, hear me out. If anyone's listening and you make this a restaurant, I will literally spend all my money at this restaurant. But imagine it's like a soup place, right? No, time out. Yes. It's like a pho place, right? It's like, imagine you have a menu, right? And you have like a little, have you seen those little kid books where like you get to put little stickers or like patches and they stay? So you have a bowl, you have a little soup bowl, right? And you just like patch on like the soup that you want, the chicken.
I see what you mean.
And like then you just turn in your bowl.
I was thinking if we were to name the restaurant, it should be called the Visualize.
Tati, you're thinking too much about branding right now.
Whoa, Tati, they're taking our business, okay? I have a better, what's it called? I have a better title for a company. Are you ready? This is our restaurant name. It's Real Eyes, Realize.
That's why I named it.
So it's Real Eyes. Yeah, like your real eyes. Realize, like they know. Realize.
Oh, I see. Just kidding.
Okay, well, I think we all agree QR codes suck. Posting selfies of just yourself is conceited.
Borderline.
Debatable.
I agree. I think it depends on the selfie.
If your entire feed is just you and selfies, I'm gonna say yes. If it's like 1, 2, 3, out of like 100 posts. No, depending on what it is.
It also depends on the situation. Okay, this is kind of a funny side story, but so one of our best friends, Declan, I won't say the person, but this girl really liked him. And if you see Declan, you'll know why. He's like 6'4". He's like fair skin, blue eyes. Sorry, ladies, he's married. You know what I mean. But there's this girl who just was in love with him. Like she would always stand right behind him in conversations and try to hang out. And Declan wasn't rude. He was just like, "Hey, like we're just friends. I don't think we should do that." And they were just good friends, right? But she would always like send him photos of herself and stuff. But like one day, I just remember we're studying, right? It's like middle of the day, and he just like starts sighing. Like he's just like and I'm like, "Hey, bro, what's up?" And he's like, "I don't know, man. This girl just sent me a selfie of herself." And I'm like, "Oh, like, let me see. Like, I think that's really like nice. She's trying to, connect with you." And it's like a selfie of her saying like, "Hey, how do you think I look?" But she's like wearing all black, and there's like flowers everywhere, and everyone else is wearing black. And I'm like, "Declan, why is she like at a formal dinner?" She's like, "No, she's actually at her father's funeral."
Maybe a scenario where you shouldn't take a selfie.
Exactly. So if you're at a funeral or like at someone's maybe baptism and like one of the 10 photos is a selfie of you, I think that's kind of weird.
Hey, you like my selfies when I post them.
Because I
Don't talk
like
to me.
you, not because
Am I basically conceited? Is that what you're calling me? I don't post that many selfies, honestly. It's probably once in a blue moon.
Tati, you get a pass because I like you. Well, you guys have to let us know your thoughts on these hot takes because clearly we had a lot to say, so I'm sure you will too. So let us know if you've made it this far what your takes on these hot takes are.
Well, everyone, thanks for watching this episode of Distractions. Like Crystal said, if you made it this far, then for the comment today, I want you guys to share a moment where you became so filled with joy and what that moment was, and share with us because we'd love to know what that moment was where the Lord just pouring in and you couldn't help but just smile and thank him for it. So thanks for listening to our podcast today. I hope today was able to encourage you. You were able to take something from it and go apply it in the world today, which I know is full of distractions, but hey, you're not alone. You're here. You're one of us. So thanks for joining in. Make sure to join our Discord and, like and subscribe to our Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, all that good jazz. And we will see you guys next Thursday. Love ya.